On the 5th of June 1977, Britain's largest ever gathering of black people marched through Birmingham to here, Handsworth Park, to celebrate and to demonstrate African Liberation Day. It was an unprecedented showing of black unity that inspired and enabled similar movements around the UK and the world. But why? 30 years after black and Asian migrants came to Birmingham, were people still needing to protest? What response had these communities faced in the years after making Birmingham their home?
My name's Jagwan Johal. I used to work in local government, primarily in race and equalities, and then ended up being a chief officer at Birmingham City Council. It was the 1948 Nationality Act, which gave Commonwealth citizens a free right of entry to the UK. But their welcome wasn't expected by the white communities that lived here. There was always a notion that migrant communities or Commonwealth communities would come to this country, rebuild it, and then leave. We were welcomed here for the labour, but we weren't welcomed here in terms of settling in neighbourhoods. But once the myth of return started to dissipate and people started to set down roots, migrant communities started fighting for rights.
The difficulties faced by people from the Commonwealth when they first came to Birmingham was not only with regard to jobs, it was entertainment. They couldn't go to certain pubs or to dances, and it was about a lack of opportunity really for people to move themselves forward. We also need to bear in mind that from the 70s onwards, it's no longer a host community in immigrants. People from the Commonwealth have settled here, their children are born here, they are British citizens, they have a right to be here.
Much of the experiences of the Commonwealth community struggling to thrive or even survive in Birmingham has been lost in time. But I'm here at Soho House in Handsworth to meet Vanley Burke, whose 5 decades worth of work has helped record and preserve the experiences of the Commonwealth immigrants for generations to come.
I am Vanley Burke. I am a photographer. My mother left to come to England, I think it was 1956. You know, my parents had come to England, and my mother, in one of the many parcels that were sent to us in Jamaica, I received a camera. When I knew I was coming to England, there was great, apprehension. The long questions I would ask myself about what life was really like in England was about to be answered, if you like. I am from rural Jamaica. Where I lived, when the car can't go anymore, you get on a donkey. And when the donkey can't go anymore, I live around the corner. I joined my parents here in 1965. It was quite claustrophobic, driving from the airport to Birmingham. There were a lot of houses, a lot of smoke coming out of houses. It was a bit grim. I brought the camera with me. I later sort of started, teaching myself. I thought, well, perhaps what I should do is to start documenting now. In terms of race, it was difficult. You have situations I was told of situations in pubs where a certain amount of glasses would be available for black people to drink from. And if there were 12 glasses and there were 13 of you, then, one would have to wait until the other, finish, or they would break the glass after you drank from it. Or being told not to come to church on the Sunday morning, can you come back in the evening, or being asked to look at house in certain places, after dark because they don't want the neighbors to see they might be selling to a black person. Plus the obviously blatant, institutional, in terms of health, mental health, in terms of education, housing, and all of that. So it was pretty tough. I felt that I was a particularly unique position, within our history in England here. And I felt I was in a particularly unique position to document our existence here. What I try to photograph is the ordinary, more than anything. It's about how do we ordinarily get on with our lives. So I feel that it is part of the struggles that we were engaged with at the time, and I try to photograph it as much as possible. I photographed African Liberation Day. I photographed in 1977, and it was the first time I was conscious that I was going to use 10 rolls of films in a day. But I felt it was sufficiently important occasion enough to warrant me using that amount of film.
The background to African Liberation Day related to solidarity over the political struggles that were actually happening. There's a striking panned photo of African people, men and women and children, across the landscape of Handsworth Park, and they're tightly knit. And that picture in particular represents the solidarity of the community. The resonance of those photos in being black and white, and some of the slogans on the banners are quite poignant. That is a landmark moment in Birmingham's history.
In what ways has the city changed in that time?
I think in recent times it has changed physically greatly, the city, and especially the city centre. It has also changed in terms of the demographic of the people who occupy the space. You hear different language being spoken, different foods being cooked, and it has changed tremendously.
Birmingham has changed beyond recognition. Once the home of the Industrial Revolution and massive manufacturing base, one of the things that has changed is the demographics of the city. From being an all-white sort of city, it is now a minority-majority city, and hopefully that diversity and the contribution that black and minority ethnic and communities of diversity have actually brought to this sort of city also needs recognising.
I'm proud of Birmingham. It's a place I choose to live. It's a place I've said I arrived in Birmingham and I've stayed in Birmingham. I think it's a good place to work from, it's a good place to travel from, and it's a good place to be.
I am a passionate Brummie. I love my city. I feel very strongly that we are a city that can be a beacon of hope, where people of different colours, creeds, ethnicities, backgrounds can work together. We are all Brummies together. We are culturally diverse, but we are unified by sharing this space.